All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of Dine and Dish. And here we go again. You get to look at me second week on video after a year of just talk. Now we have faces. So it's so cool because I get to put faces to names, and we have great guests as always, another amazing show. But before we get there, we had such a cool week last week. We were out in Florida for the premiere of our new reality show, DiMeo Dynasty, and that is coming so soon. We're super excited. Gennaro, myself, Steve, Eric, everybody was out in Florida. We had a 4-day premiere. The Dining Empire did an amazing job. Fubu did an amazing job. We got to air the first episode on the big screen, which was super cool. So we have lots of fun stuff coming up in the upcoming weeks on our show. But we're going to jump right into our show today because, every week we run out of time. And we have two amazing guests. Actually, Jeff is local to Naptown, so we'll talk about that. And he's joined by Matthew Joyner, and they are with Restaurant365. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce them and let them tell us what they do, who they are, what their company is, and how it's relevant to my business in the restaurant industry. So welcome, Jeff. Welcome, Matt, to Dine and Dish. And who wants to kick it off today?
Well, yeah, sure. I'll just introduce myself. Thank you Michele for having us and giving us the opportunity to do the podcast. Very exciting. I'm local. I live in Naptown. I've been with Restaurant365 almost half a year. Very excited in the tech hospitality world. We are the only hospitality specific profitability platform. And I used to be a neighbor of Michele's not too long ago. So I reached out to her on Instagram. I love her post. Her and her husband, always fun to catch up with her. So yeah, very excited about this opportunity.
Yeah, well, being local, all of our restaurants. So
yes.
Hopefully you've eaten at a few too.
All of them. Besides the newest one yet. I'm excited about going to the newest one in Severna Park.
Yeah, well, we just did the grand opening on Saturday. So
awesome.
BV Severna Park is officially out and open.
Very cool.
Yeah. And Matt?
Yeah.
Welcome to Dine and Dish.
Yeah, thanks, Michele. So my name's Matt Joyner. I'm the Director of Sales at Restaurant365 for the Eastern United States. And I've been with Restaurant365 in some way for almost 10 years now. So restaurant technology sales has been half of my career. The other half of my career was spent in restaurant operations and running restaurants and coming up in that side of the business. And so I am a restaurant lifer for sure.
Yeah. I think at some point, everybody has worked at some capacity in the restaurant world, whether it's serving, bartending, IT. I mean, I've been doing the show for almost a year now, and every guest that I've had on has mentioned that they've worked in some capacity in the restaurant world. So, well, welcome to the show. So what we need to do before we get started and we jump in and I start asking you all a ton of questions and picking your brains in this industry, why don't you kick it off and talk about how relevant your business is in this world, in this space. So, I mean, everything that you do, I mean, obviously you can't talk about every piece, but if you can give us a high level introduction of what you do, how it affects our business, because you mentioned one big thing, Jeff. You talked about profitability, and the restaurant world is so volatile. I mean, 80 plus high numbers don't make it in this industry. And, we want to talk and we want the listeners to understand how important it is to be profitable and what you can bring to the table and what tools that you have. And then we'll jump into the details of operation and accountability.
Yeah, I can take that one. So for us specifically, me and the team that Jeff's on, I always try to tell the team that we're helping restaurants thrive. And we have this really great problem solving technology that we're trying to get into the hands of operators. And the reason for that, when I first started in the restaurant industry, I remember salespeople coming in and trying to pitch us why we needed a point of sale. And I remember my manager kicking them out the door. Like, we don't need that point of sale stuff.
Yeah. Wait, Matt, I'll tell you one better. When I started with Gennaro Oh my God, it's been almost 20 years because they were using handwritten ledger books. Remember like
Oh
the
yeah.
books where you draw the line with a ruler and you have like sales. And I mean, I walked in and I came from the accounting world and I walked in, I go, what are those? I was like,
Well,
well,
I'm going to
that's our
tell you,
cash register.
you'd be shocked. We actually still run into restaurants that are running those
Yeah.
same type of general ledger, but it's
Really?
rare these days. It's rare these days, but sometimes we do run into that sort of thing. But we don't run into we rarely run into restaurants anymore that don't have a point of sale. Like you'd be crazy to open a restaurant without a point of sale these days, unless you're like kind of the mom and pop, like, and it's part of your culture to like, ring the thing. And, maybe there's some of that in New York or something like that. But for the most part, everybody uses a point of sale. And then the next decade, that came along with kind of the hot schedules, digital reservation systems, and in the digital scheduling world, like, it was open table and hot schedules, right? Like you had to get open table and hot schedules to manage your labor and to manage your reservations.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Toast came in and really reinvented the point of sale world. And there was this huge influx of restaurant technology. And now, it doesn't matter what problem you have, you can go and you can find some sort of technology that's going to solve that problem. Well, what really evolved out of that was, I was just talking to an operator out in New York, and he's got 10 locations, and he uses about 15 different technologies to run the 10 locations. And it makes it very difficult for them to get accurate information because all those systems have to talk to each other and they have to communicate, and they don't do it very well. So you get outdated, inaccurate information, and it makes it very hard to have a disciplined operating rhythm because of that.
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, even in our restaurants, I mean, we're getting so much better with streamlining, but there was a time where you had a tool for scheduling, you had a tool to use the POS, then you had one for reporting. I mean, Steve will tell you, and for everybody that knows, Steve not only helps produce the show, but he also works on the IT side and he helps me with all the operation. And there was a time where I kept saying to him, there's got to be one product out there that runs it all. Like we would have a dashboard for reporting. We'd have a dashboard to log into Resi. And then we had Open Table. Then now it's Resi. I mean, it's unbelievable how many different platforms you have to use to get one combined result. So you want to pull as an operator, especially when you have multi-unit stores, you want to have one report that says, okay, here's my stores, these are the sales, these are the schedules, this is our payroll percent, these are our net profits. And it's hard to get that. I mean, we used to use, like you said, multi-platforms.
Yeah. I'm spending a lot of time with these multi-unit restaurant operators and the CFOs and COOs. And, what I'm learning a lot of times, this we're not failing with one big catastrophic bad decision. Usually it's thousands of little misses. It's labor drift here. It's a little bit of waste here. It's a little invoice creep here. And then you're just getting poor reporting that's not giving you the insight into those things. And that's where people are losing out on some of the high performance and margin retention that helps them grow faster.
Yeah. So across industries, I mean, obviously you probably work with many industries. I mean, do you focus mostly with just restaurants, hospitality, or do you work with a lot of different industries?
We are 99% restaurants.
Okay.
We do help a few hotels, maybe a few golf courses. We've got some things like, maybe like a punch bowl, event center.
Mostly hospitality.
It's definitely all hospitality, and it's
Okay.
mostly restaurants.
Perfect. So across restaurant groups, what are you seeing right now in terms of profitability? I mean, is it all over the place? Like, what do you see as winning strategies? So when you're looking at like labor, food cost, management, discipline, what are you seeing in terms of trends and profitability right now overall?
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely get into the strategies. I think as far as like what we're seeing, 2026 feels less like a sales crisis. It feels more like a margin war right now. There's a lot of restaurants that are flat year over year. I think they took dips last year because, there wasn't another year of inflation to help like raise menu prices. I mean, there was some inflation, but not like the years prior. Um, so I think with sales relatively flat year over year, guests are still going out. It's just there's a lot of pressure on profitability. Operators are fighting multiple fronts. I think in 2019, um, full service restaurants ran about a 4% profit margin. Quick service was around 6%. Now you're seeing 2.8% for the full service and 4% for the QSRs. So, and a lot of that's due to like labor's continuing to go up. We just saw beef prices this quarter, 13% increase year over year. Coffee and like NA Bev has been up 6.5% year over year. And the consumers they're watching their dollars more, right? They're a little more value sensitive than they used to be. So they really want to get a lot out of their dining experience, and they're not just going to throw the dollars around like they did in some years past. So, the delivery economics we're even seeing on the third party delivery, I think a lot of folks are still working those out. Mm-hmm. And, the days of like revenue can hide all the problems. Right now, that's under a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny you said that because, well, we're going to talk COVID because every show COVID comes up. I mean, COVID changed everything about dining.
For sure.
And it was, nobody got to do anything. They were locked in their homes. They shopped, they cooked. It changed the mentality of how people ate and dined and just the whole behavioral. But then it was like a rush. Everything opened up and everybody was back out dining. So you saw huge profit numbers and everything kind of just like what? It was like up, 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 up. And then 25, I think most industries went flat. I mean, what we saw in the restaurant business, we didn't see huge numbers. And then, like you said, now the numbers are increasing, but they're not big wins like they used to be. Yeah. And in the restaurant industry, our biggest challenge is, of course, everything keeps going up, but you can't take a menu and say, okay, well, beef's up, chicken's up. I mean, look at Vivi's Chicken and, our newest concept, Vivi's Chicken and Mac. Chicken keeps going up, wings keep going up, everything keeps going up. But our menu, it's fast casual. I mean, people aren't going to spend $30 for chicken tenders, So what do you do with that? I mean, talk execution. I mean, when you're talking about profitability and discipline and execution, let's jump right into what you do on a store level. Like, how do you start looking at that? How do you roll that out and accountability and training? So let's jump right into, the whole accountability and operations.
Yeah. So Jeff, maybe that's a good one for you since you're talking.
All right, Jeff, you're in the hot seat, my friend.
I know. Yeah. So that is actually interesting. So I just had a conversation with another prospect of ours, 4 locations, wants to scale, and kind of like what you're talking about is like we have the ability to help them more efficiently with food cost and labor cost, right? Because everybody is operating on razor thin margins, and you're looking at, how can I become more profitable with a couple of, getting more butts in the seats? Do I want to scale? Do I want time and management? What is your pain point, right? So, a lot of it is around food costs and menus, and how are their menus profitable? So with with Restaurant365, what we're able to do is show that like what they are paying for a particular piece of food, what they're selling it, what their ingredients are, actually providing a true actual versus theoretical cost basis. So, and it's giving you, when we have conversations with customers that want to scale and understand that they have a problem, it's not, is it a labor problem or a food problem? We're giving them data that shows them what it is, as far as like, all right, we're selling, 20 tacos at this one particular location, especially with you guys, similar concepts, multiple locations. We have the ability to look at each locations. If one's performing higher than the other, why is that, right? Is that a training challenge, or is that a proportion or a portion challenge? Like, we had another client, a smoothie restaurant / Smoothie King somewhat establishment that was using the yellow scooper for pineapple and was using a red scooper instead with different ingredients. So it goes back to consistency. So really looking at the things that are assumed a lot of times, you have different chefs at different locations, right? So it's really becoming more data driven, AI driven. What you were asking about is how can you run your restaurant more efficiently by looking at the numbers, and how can we help them do that is with the menu engineering. Like, how much are you paying for a particular, skirt steak, right? With it going up and down every other week or so, we have the ability to show the trends in that and help them with, do they have do they sell more on a Wednesday as opposed to a Friday? And it helps them with more ordering efficiently. Do you ever run out of food? Do you ever over order, right, with their par? So there's so much different data that you look into, and like it goes back to that cloud chaos with having so many different systems going out, in and out of that. A lot of that gets lost. So having that one platform, showing it all, bringing the chaos down to just one dashboard, showing on a smooth, nice dashboard of the different locations, the value spent on food, the day, calculating labor versus sales. It gives a better indication of what's working faster, right? Instead of, a lot of people, this might catch you by surprise as well. A lot of people don't get P&Ls every month, right? It could be 6 weeks, 2 months, where the problem's already, twofold, threefold, as opposed to where we can provide something, weekly.
Proactive.
Yeah.
So Jeff, you said a couple three big things that I wrote down, which we're going to talk about. And I want to talk about all three of them. You said menu engineering and programming. So that's a big one for restaurants, because a lot of owners don't realize how important menu engineering is. So, so let's talk full service real quickly, because we have a mix of both full service and fast casual. You let the chef do the menu. So he knows, hopefully, the price of food and cost when he's putting together pricing for a menu, but not every operator knows how to do that, right? And fast casual, it's even, your margins are so much smaller. So it's so important to understand your buying power and how to create a menu. Okay. So that's the first key thing I want to talk about, and how you manage that process from a number standpoint. Because one of the things I always say is numbers are the end result of behavior. So how do you start with the behavior? Do you start with, okay, here's the numbers, this is where your challenge is, and this is the behavior you need to change? So if you can start there and talk through that process, because menu engineering is so important in profitability.
Yeah. And Michele, what we do see quite a few businesses start in a good place. We create a menu and it looks really good on paper, on day one. But prices change week to week, right? And when your customer is feeling, or your guests are feeling the pressure of raising prices over the last few years, you have to run a tighter ship. And one of the ways that you can do that is have ongoing feedback from a menu engineering perspective. So that way you can start to push, like, let's say beef does take a huge jump one week. Maybe we don't push beef that hard that week. We know that it's, maybe chicken, we got a really good price on that week. So we tell the servers.
But what happens if you're like fast casual and you can't change that menu? So that works if you're,
great question.
You have specials, you know what I'm saying? So like when you say you can't push beef.
For sure.
So talk through like what happens when, you have a set menu and you can't change it.
Yeah. And so in those scenarios, like for instance, like Dave's Hot Chicken, right? They only serve chicken tenders and fries. We started with them when they were 2 locations.
You mean like BB's Chicken and Mac?
Yeah.
No Dave's Hot Chicken here.
Yeah. We started with them when they were 2 locations in 2019, and they just sold for $1 billion. And if you talk to their team, they'll sing the Restaurant365 praises all day. Not to plug Restaurant365 again, but what we're going to allow you to do in those situations when you have a more limited menu is focus on things that are within your control, like portion control, waste control, purchasing discipline, recipe accuracy, and have a real guided approach to, these are the specific items where we're messing up, and these are the specific shifts and days that we're messing up on those particular things, so that we can be the best version of ourselves when we can't control things like pricing or menu mix.
Yeah. Second thing you brought up, which comes up every single show, we talk 2 things. We talk COVID and we talk AI. AI is, So it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, everybody out there can look everything up and they think ChatGPT and all these AI systems are like the end all be all and they give them the best information. And then they don't look for true, real support because obviously, everybody thinks AI can be a doctor, it can be an accountant, right. It can be a banker. I mean, they look for even legal. I mean, I've heard from, I've had attorneys on the show and they're like, oh yeah, my client went on ChatGPT and created their own document. I mean, so what is AI doing for your business? And, how's it affecting what you're seeing from, accountability and numbers and results?
And when you say our business, do you mean the restaurant
in general, like
the restaurant operators themselves, or
your field, your industry? Because AI is affecting everybody. So, what results are you seeing, and how do you see AI affecting just profitability overall in restaurants?
Yeah. So at the moment, what we're trying to help our restaurants think about how do they set themselves up for success as AI continues to evolve. I don't even think most of the restaurants are ready to get the most out of AI when AI really starts to do what AI will be able to do. There's a lot of folks that are still out there. They're not counting inventory, right? They're tracking things on pen and paper. They're not tracking things at all. So in a world where the data and all of the numbers will help you from an AI perspective, we're just trying to help people start to get those numbers. So that way, as Restaurant3, we're developing and releasing quite a few AI features this year. If you go to the National Restaurant Association show, you'll see our whole booth is going to look like one big AI booth. But if people don't have,
you have to go that route, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be the world. I mean, look, third-party delivery has little vehicles that are self-manned. I mean, we now have cars with those Waymos, whatever. They're self-driving cars. I mean, eventually everything is going to be so techy that if you don't jump on, I mean, who knows? Robots might take over bartenders and servers. I mean, they're getting there, right? So we got to jump on the AI techie world. And I'm the worst at, I am a tech nightmare. Ask Steve. I shut everything down, everything breaks, and I'm like, this damn computer,
Yeah.
So so we all have to jump on the AI tech.
Absolutely. And I think we have to prepare ourselves and put ourselves in a position to take advantage of AI as it continues to evolve. And so that's what we're focused on right now. There's still a lot of restaurants that are running off very manual, lack of reporting information. That we're trying to fix that first so that they can be ready to take advantage of the rest of it.
Yeah. All right. Third piece that you said, Jeff, I'm kind of bullet pointing because you said a lot of good stuff. So ordering is so key. One of the things that we had a challenge with for a long time, and I'm going to pick on my Riva location for a minute in Annapolis. They've all worked there for 20 years. It's the same guys. The same guys are in the kitchen. The same guys are cooking. And they get to the point where they look at a shelf and they're like, there's usually 4 up there and there should be 3. It's not like, let's pull a report. Let's look at, okay, this is what we usually buy. This is what's sold. This is what we need. We need a par system. Like, you go in and you talk par and they look at you like, no, there's supposed to be 3 on the shelf. So ordering, it gets to the point where it's a double-edged sword. It's good and it's bad. They either order too much or they don't order enough. So how do you work with accountability with managers? So let's talk the GM level. So you now need to go to the GM, right? And get the GM on board to be able to take this information down to whoever's doing the ordering. So how does that process work?
Well, you got to realize, they depends on if they realize they have a problem or the pain. A lot of folks that I talk to are doing the inventory, right? That it's consuming 12 hours a week, 24 hours every 2. Some of these folks are doing way too much inventory on a monthly basis that they can be doing so much more for their business. They're not, getting back to the customer experience. They're spending way too much time in the back of the office. So they usually come to me or we go to them and say, hey, we've been able to cut their inventory times in half, right? So I just had a call up last week, took them about 12 hours a week. So we're able to cut their inventory time in half, right? So putting almost a full day back in their day or their week where they can be concentrating on training new bartenders, new menu items, customer experience. So, it's because they're saying, they are running out of food or they're over ordering, and those are perishable items. So that is waste. They are not really, as Matt's point, like it isn't. The more conversations I have, I'm running into that a lot where people aren't tracking their waste. They're not tracking their inventory from a automation standpoint where we have the ability from an app to track it, right? They're doing so many different things, and a lot of things are getting inputted incorrectly and spending too much time duplicating effort. So they're realizing, hey, we need to scale, but we cannot continue to scale if we go about this at this pace, right? They think they're profitable, but I just had another call where their annual revenue for one site was $4.5 million. I'm like, all right, well, what is your food cost? And they're like, I don't know. So like, that's great, but are you like, so you could be making 4.5 million, but your overall cost is 5 million. And, and Matt always tells us,
money because you don't know where. Look, because there's only two areas in the restaurant business that you really can control, right? It's labor and it's food. I mean,
exactly.
Everything else you run at an operating cost. So, like, in the perfect world, you want to be at like a 10% operating cost, right? Because you have 8% rent, and then you have 2 or 3% for like miscellaneous. But if your food cost should be running 20, let's say 27%, and you're at 38%, there's your margin, there's your profit.
And exactly, and that's kind of how we break it down to them, or like, hey, because what's the cost of not doing something, right? Like if you continue to do this and you're continue to getting your P&L every 6 weeks and you're okay with it, like you don't find out about it until it's past the year and you weren't that profitable. Like, so let's try to fix that now, because to your point, food and labor changes consistently, and like even on the labor point, cutting people and scheduling correctly, that's not labor controls, right? Well, we have the ability to forecast the weather, looking back, historical sales. If you have a big event coming up in Annapolis or Florida, wherever, and you did a certain percentage or a certain amount on certain days, we have the scheduling ability to control that for you and show do you have an A team? Do you have a B team that are able to sell items more efficiently than some other teams, right? Than you have. It goes back to, it's so strategic about running the restaurant because, as Matt always tells us, it's awesome, these restaurants, and, everyone gets in it with their passion, but what really would suck if it's really awesome and great, but, a year from now, it's not around anymore because there's so much more than goes into it than having phenomenal food, right? You got to be able to
sure.
Right.
Jeff, everybody wants to own a restaurant.
I
can't tell you. It's like I've had people come to us. I mean, when we do our discovery days, when we were ramping up big time with Squisito when we were franchising, and I would literally interview people on the discovery day, and I'd say, "Why do you want to open a restaurant?" "Oh, I've always wanted to open a restaurant. I want to be the guy behind the counter." "Oh, perfect." And what happens when the guy behind the counter has to jump on the line and now be a head chef or have to make pizza? And I mean, I used to tell them, if you want to open a restaurant and waste your money, it's better to put it in the toilet and flush it, because it's easier to lose it that way than lose your hair and stress. It's stressful. The restaurant business is stressful.
Yeah.
So,
it definitely is.
You have to know your business, and you have to be on top of the numbers, and to talk profitability. And you said something important when I want to switch over and talk about labor, because labor is such a huge issue right now. I mean, back in the day it was, tips and low hourly rates and minimum wage. And now everything is crazy. I mean, minimum wage in some cities are more than what some of the salary people are making.
DC is $35 an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Like look at New York and LA and some of these big cities. I mean, even DC, like Montgomery County, it's crazy now for my Squisito stores. So let's jump right into labor and talk about scheduling and balancing labor costs. Because like you said, you can't be reactive, right? You have to do a schedule and know that the schedule works for the business. Because the last thing you want to do is cut your schedule, cut your people, cut your hours, and then it affects your guest experience.
Oh, yeah.
So talk to me about labor and hiring and scheduling, because that's a big part of your business, right?
And Matt, I like, because he tells a very good story about this. He has a metrics that he breaks down to us every other week about how he used to go about it when he used to staff his restaurant.
Yeah, I think, and it comes back to your last question too, Michele, about accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you were saying, how do you empower GMs to hold their teams accountable in over or under ordering, and how do we hold the GMs accountable to uh, using their labor effectively? And I think the smartest GMs that are out there, or the smartest companies, are teaching their GMs to use labor as a deployment, not just as a cost cutting function in the business. And the way that you can do that is by forecasting first how, where do we put our people, and on the right shifts at the right time with the right people, and then go back and review weekly and see how we executed on that plan. So it's about tightening prep windows, adjusting staffing by day parts, identifying weak leadership or weak teams, and developing them into stronger teams. That way it doesn't become just this like cut people. It makes it a much more strategic function in the business. And so, that's how our most well-run restaurants are looking at it.
Yeah. It's funny you said that, because back in the day I worked in retail. I mean, I'm going to digress for a second. And fourth quarter, they used to, I mean, it's like they bank on Christmas and the holidays driving all the sales. And I worked in retail for years and years and years. And one of the things that always happened was we would get to fourth quarter and they'd be like, yes, this is where our sales kick in and it lowers labor rates. So they would tell you, okay, cut labor, because they wanted to have like 8% labor instead of 28%, because in the summer you run high. And I would think to myself, okay, we're busy as hell and you want less people on the floor. Like, it's the stupidest. I mean, I'm going to pick on Macy's for a minute, because I used to go, my husband loves to go to, and we would go to Macy's and I'd be like, where is the salesperson?
Right.
Like, you would literally have to search the store to pay for somebody. I literally would pick up something for Christmas and I would stand there and say, does anybody want to ring me up? Like, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So why would any business want to jeopardize the guest experience by reducing labor? So talk to me about labor strategy, because it's also about scheduling. I mean, how do you know it's not only just scheduling, but it's also the balance of who's your strong performers and who are your weak performers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you identify that and then put that together in some type of scheduling piece, right? Because it's not just people, it's not just bodies anymore.
Right. So it depends. We try to meet people where they're at. But I think a lot of people out there are still managing off of a labor percentage rather than a sales per labor hour. And so once we kind of, if they're not even tracking labor percent, or maybe they don't have an accurate labor percent in a timely way, we start there, and then we review the 5 different processes of, build a forecast, schedule to that forecast, in shift management, look at the reports, and then rinse, wash, repeat. That's kind of the first phase. And then the second phase of that would be starting to manage by sales per labor hour, because that really helps them look at labor as a function of productivity rather than just that cost cutting, like I was referring to earlier. It's more of a labor deployment rather than a labor reduction. And then on top of that, to your point, you have to have accountability. And the only way that you can have accountability is if you have clear scoreboards that are reliable, they're timely, they're accurate, and then you create an operating rhythm, whether that's pre-shift huddles, shift labor checks, manager walkthroughs, daily recaps, and then you hold you have to communicate on those things and develop people where they're lacking. And if you incentivize them with a strong bonus plan based on sales per labor hour and your food variances, you should get results.
Yeah. So are you able to pull hourly reports, like looking at okay, you talked about day parts. So are you able to pull those hourly reports so you can say, okay, at 11 a.m. we have a spike until 1 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock it dies. So that might be a good time to take breaks. So, I mean, is it a real time reporting? So I'm talking from an owner's perspective, but now I'm taking it down to my manager and I'm telling them, because one of the things I always say is watch your labor. I want to run at 28%, and I'll sometimes pull up Toast, because you can see from Toast what you're running. I could pull up Toast right now and look at any store and they could be running 8% in one store and 48% in another store. How do you manage that? Or are you integrated with Toast? How does that whole process work with the POS? Because, talk through that for me.
Yeah. So from a product perspective, we do integrate to the point of sale, and we do pull many point of sales as long as they allow it every 15 minutes. So first, it's about creating a forecast that's really, really accurate by the, whether that's a 15-minute or a 1 hour breakdown per day, and then understanding who you need on that shift and how much those people cost. And then once you've built out that schedule plan that reflects the number, or this, what I would encourage everyone to do is move towards sales per labor hour. Mm-hmm. Once they have that plan in place, then it becomes, we pull the point of sale every 15 minutes to let you know in shift if you're accomplishing what you need to accomplish. And then the managers just have to take action on Restaurant365 says I'm overstaffed or I'm understaffed. And then the leadership team then has to go and look at reports, to see if we executed on that and hold people accountable.
Yeah. So let's shift a little bit to multi-concept and scalability. So you talked about the other chicken guy, and they just sold for $1 billion. We're not going to turn into a commercial, but talk about, they grew and they were able to take the concept to many locations. So obviously using a product that gives you reporting and the ability to scale the right way, right? And to be successful from multi-concepts to multi-levels to, scaling to multi-cities. How do you do that? And how do you prepare for that growth? So obviously having these kind of tools are great, because now you have your upper level management reviewing them, right? Taking it down to their meetings, but talk through that whole process of the next phase growth. So like if you were coming to me and I'm saying, okay, we're getting ready to take VV's Chicken. We're moving up north, we're moving our headquarters to New Jersey, and we're going to be opening in Jersey. So now we have, the Maryland stores, DC, Virginia, Delaware. Now we're going into Jersey. Talk to me how I would prepare for that next phase of our growth.
Yeah. And a lot of times it comes back to, are you going to do corporate led growth? Are you going to do franchisee led growth? It sounds like moving into a new market is also another factor in this conversation that sometimes does come into play. You might just be opening a new store in a market that you're already in, where customers already know you. But it really just comes, and then I guess there's another factor of, can you quickly get that new store access to the same level of functionality that you have at your other stores? I would say, though, more important than all of that, do you have repeatable processes that work, and can you quickly get adoption from the team? I think that's the most important thing that people miss. Yeah. They try to grow before they have the processes in place that are scalable. And so Restaurant365, there's a group in town here that during COVID, they went from 20 locations to 50 locations. And they'll tell you there's no way they could have done it without Restaurant365, because we give you the
systems are so important.
Yeah, we give you the infrastructure and the clarity and the numbers to be able to hold people accountable to process.
Yeah. So when we talk about streamlining, that's my biggest thing. I'm effective and efficient. One of the things, believe it or not, we talked about in Florida, even at the launch of our show, one of the presenters said, you know what, if it's going to cost you money, you got to figure out what your money's worth. What's your hourly rate? And if it's not going to pay you to do it, then you need to find somebody else to do it. And I'm a restaurateur. So obviously I don't want to be the marketing person. I don't want to be the operations person. And, so you have to play in your space, right? You have to drive in your lane. So what's going to make you effective and efficient? And my question to you would be, what operational habits do you feel are needed to be the most efficient? Because that's my thing. I say it all the time, effective and efficient. If it's not, it's a waste of my time. I have too many things on my plate, too many plates spinning at the same time. So what should we do? What habits are you seeing to be the most efficient in that space? Is that a loaded question?
We could take that in a lot of different directions. Yeah. More specifically, is there like just habits to drive efficiency is kind of what you're getting at, I think.
Yeah.
So you have to have a very clean inventory process that's not going to take people all day to do. Mm-hmm. You have to have a really clean invoice workflow, consistent scheduling discipline and process around scheduling. You have to have daily or preferably in shift awareness around labor and sales. And then a weekly operating cadence that everybody's bought into and understands the importance and the context that makes that effective.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I also think also having, manager development. Do you have like a development program that you use for new hires, or, to Matt's point earlier, the repeatable things that people think are so easy, right? Hiring, as you know, is very difficult, and you're going into a new area in New Jersey, just making sure that what's worked at other places, it's repeatable, from a training perspective, new waitresses, new bartenders, chefs, right? You got the chefs that have been there at some of your locations for 20 years. Like, are their recipes written down, or do they just do a pinch here or a pinch there? It's because you have to have that consistency too, right? Because if people are very familiar with you, in Delaware and Maryland, and they go to New Jersey and it's just a little bit off, that's going to affect the customer experience. So it goes into a lot of stuff that's repeatable, successful, and it's able to be implemented at the other locations as well.
Yeah, and I can give you a more real world example rather than just like a bunch of bullet points. Mm-hmm. We worked with a barbecue group out of Texas. They had 10 locations. They had someone that was coming in on the first half of every day and just taking daily sales information and putting it into their accounting software by day part. And so that was
manually typing it in.
Yes. And so that wasn't very effective or efficient. And so they were able to, once they got Restaurant365 in, they were able to use that person for more strategic advice and analyzing reports rather than just typing in information. And they were able to get on a weekly cadence. Every Monday morning, they would have the operators go in, count inventory, and immediately after counting inventory, they would look at their P&L, their actual versus theoretical variances, and their menu engineering. And then they would make adjustments for the following week. And that type of cadence right there, along with the time, like that one example of time savings and efficiency, they saved almost $1 million in the first year.
Wow. Over how many locations? 10, you said? Wow. And how do you track that? I mean, how do you, like you said, they saved $1 million. Like, how do you track the dollar amount? How do you put a dollar amount into what the savings would be?
So, I mean, you'll have a daily and weekly P&L all the way down to EBITDA with every cost center associated with it. So you'll know on day one, like you'll get, I mean, not day one, but like day one of going live with Restaurant365, here's my P&L. And then throughout that year, you can track your progress.
Okay, so here's the $1 million question. So does that mean I get rid of QuickBooks? Because I hate QuickBooks.
Good. I mean, yes.
Because, I mean, think about that. Like, we have to take, I mean, Steve will tell you he can't stand it because you have to take all the information from your bank, all the information from Toast, and then you sit in an office like a data processor, like in the old days, like and put everything into QuickBooks.
And he has nothing else going on either, right? So he's not
right, because I have nothing else to do but be a QuickBooks operator.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're trying to move toward this world of like get people out of using generic accounting softwares. Why would you use a generic accounting software when there's a restaurant specific one that's been around for 16 years and all we do is take care of restaurants? And there's tons.
And it's integrated.
And it's integrated.
So I don't have to type anything in.
Correct. And I think, to take that, I mean, it's going to be great to save you time and that's all wonderful. I think, culturally what it does is it removes the wall between operations and accounting, because a lot of times, and I'm sure you've seen this, Michele, especially if you bonus your team, They get their numbers. They think they ran a great food cost. They ran a great labor cost. And then the final P&L comes out and it's a whole bunch of different numbers because they didn't take into consideration workman's comp or taxes or, some sort of invoices that they missed. And now they're frustrated, and they're frustrated at accounting, right? Or they're frustrated at finance. And so when you have a system like Restaurant365 where it all lives in one place, everybody's operating off one single source of truth that they have daily and weekly. And it creates more of a synergy between accounting and operations rather than this disjointed cross-departmental dysfunction.
Yeah. Well, I told you it was going to happen. We were going to run out of time. I didn't even get to half my questions. That always happens. Every show I do, I get to like the 45-minute mark and I'm like, damn, we're already running out of time. And I didn't even get to like ask all my questions. But before we go, every show I do a lightning round of just quick, rapid questions to see your thoughts about what's going on. So I'm going to shoot them out there and you guys tell me whoever wants to answer them. But one metric every restaurant operator should look at on a daily basis.
Oh, one
metric.
It would either be actual versus theoretical variances or sales per labor hour. Sorry, I can't choose which one. Probably sales per labor hour.
Jeff, what's your thoughts?
Sales per labor hour.
Yeah. Labor's a big one for us. So I think I agree with that. Biggest profit killer in the restaurant right now?
Operational inconsistency.
Good one.
Okay, I like that. One report you can't live without, Jeff.
P&L.
Most overrated focus in the restaurant that you see from a GM?
Overrated focus from a GM?
Mm-hmm.
Really focused on top line sales without protecting margins.
Yeah. I think a lot of our GMs, you know what? It's not their fault, right? They do what they think they know. And, they need a good leader. They need somebody to show them like, this is what you should look at. So if they have a tool, it sets them up for success, right? So they're not just doing what they think they need to do. They're doing what they should be able to do, right?
Right.
Yeah. Hire slow or hire fast?
Slow.
Yeah, slow.
Slow? Well, what about hire fast, but have the right tools to train them the right way? Because what happens if let's talk Q4, you're getting into Christmas and holiday parties and you go from 10 really good servers and now you need 30. You can't hire slow. So what do you do?
Well, if you're giving me the option, just hire slow. Just hire fast. But my theory on this is you're always hiring constantly. You're always having conversations with people. So anytime you need someone, that person's already ready to go. You've already identified talent way before.
Yeah. As long as you're in a good market where you don't have challenges with hiring. Because Annapolis is one of those, like, sometimes you got really, really good candidates. And then sometimes there's like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
They say unemployment rates are skyrocketing. I'm like, where is everybody when we need to hire people?
Far too often what I see though is GMs and managers are very reactive. It's like, oh, I had someone quit. Now I go look for somebody. Instead of, it just needs to be a part of your operating rhythm. Every single week you're holding interviews and talking to people. And that way you have someone already ready to go on deck in case you need them.
Yeah. So what's the ideal food cost percentage right now? Like, what are you seeing as like a benchmark for food cost? Is that a loaded one? I guess there's no right or wrong, but what are you seeing across the board as like ideal food cost?
What they want to be at or what they're telling. I've had people tell me it as high as, Matt and I had a call last week where it was 45%, which was ridiculous.
Okay, that's very high.
Exactly. And then I've seen some people that have been at 26%. It's never where they want it to be. Right. So, that it's just, I think what we see and what I read and the industry average is about 25 to 23.
Yeah.
So it's just about, people understanding what their true food cost is and how can we get them there? Because they're never where they want to be.
Yeah. It's so dependent on the segment, the concept type. Sub 30 seems to be everybody's goal, but really, you've got some breakfast joints doing 20. I think it's more about what I see is, are you calculating food costs the right way? And just, do you know the best version of yourself? And usually people don't know either one of those answers, especially in the sub 15 unit groups.
All right. And last but not least, pizza or chicken?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Jeff?
Pizza.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we got to talk to Janara then, because he's all about his new Vivi's chicken concept.
Well, I mean, I like chicken too, but I
mean, chicken.
I'm going to go try it out.
Chicken
well, you're local, Jeff, so you have to.
Yeah.
Chicken if we're with you, Michele, and then pizza otherwise.
Yeah.
What's that?
If we're with you, it's chicken. If it's not with you, pizza.
Yeah. Well, for everybody listening, you know where we are. We're always open. Our DMs are open. You can email me. You can call. We always are looking for new topics and amazing new guests. I mean, we have so many cool shows coming up. This week, we're also going to be talking with Noah from Olo, who, my God, I met him. I think it's been like 18 years ago when he first started online ordering. He's going to be on the show this week. So we have a lot of really cool shows coming up in the future. And before we go, Jeff and Matt, where can we find you? Let everybody know if they need more information or they want to pick your brain or schedule some type of call with you all. How do they find you?
Joiner at restaurant365.com, or lots of people made fun of me for putting my cell phone out on podcasts, but I will do it again. 941-628-0280. Give me a call. I'm part of the industry. I'm trying to help everybody win. So what about you, Jeff?
Yeah. And Jeff, what about you?
J Cockrell, COCKRELL at restaurant365.com. LinkedIn, I will be pushing this podcast throughout the LinkedIn connection, Instagram as well. And I can't let Matt just put out his cell phone. Feel free to contact me as well at 443-758-6560.
All right. And before we go, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with? I mean, we talked about so much great information, from scaling restaurants to profitability to margins, how to be effective, efficient, labor costs. I mean, what separates a good restaurant group from the great? You know, so you've worked with good and you've worked with great. What separates them? What do you want to leave us with?
Jeff, you want to go first?
Well, yeah. So the folks that understand that they know they want to scale, and we are truly the only profitability platform that is specific to restaurants. We were started by 3 accountants, Michele. So if they want to grow and become more efficient, Restaurant365 is the only platform in the world that does that.
And Matt, any thoughts?
I mean, obviously, number one, you have to put the guest first and the guest experience first, always. So, you know, I sit here and every day I operate out of, you know, through the lens of like great restaurant groups, you know, operational discipline, that sort of thing. But really, in the broader world, if I'm going to give one thing, just make sure you're taking really great care of your guests and providing a great experience, and then figure out the operational discipline part.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, restaurants today are all about the guest experience. You can have great food and a horrible experience, and it doesn't matter. They're not coming back. But you can have average food, but have that wow and that secret sauce, and people just keep coming back and they love it. And then what keeps them alive and what keeps them open is all the stuff behind that, right? All the operation, the organization, all the effective, efficient tools. So, you know, I agree with everything we talked about today. And, you know, we've been around, we were talking this week, almost 35 years. And in order to stay 35 years in this industry and still open restaurants and still be able to grow, you have to be smart and you have to embrace the tools out there. And, you know, tools like your company brings to the table. And that's one of the reasons why this show, every week, I bring on guests that can provide tools for those in the hospitality industry and obviously other industries as well, because our listeners are all over the world. But we want people to be able to take something away from this show. So, you know, once again, thank you so much for being on the show today. Your insight and your knowledge and your expertise is very well received. And hopefully you can come back and be a guest again in the future.
Thanks, Michele.
And we're going to have a call tomorrow because, you know, I'm going to pick your brain more about bringing your tools to our restaurant group. So we look forward to that.
Awesome.
Thanks, Michele. You're awesome.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait to talk to you more.
All right. Well, thanks again. And thanks for being on the show. And that's another episode of Dine and Dish. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.